Hi, welcome back to Follet, the video novel. Today's video snippet is going to be the second part of chapter 16. And I don't know how I did it, but there's nothing untoward anywhere in the reading today. It's great. It's safe as houses for anybody who might like to listen to it. So there. Okay, if you're ready, we'll start. In her dream, Ruth's lustrous black hair was shorter, parted on the side, with waves all over her head, ending in a corona of curls. She walked to a dressing table in her dream, slipping out of an ivory silk dressing gown on the way to reveal her nakedness. Follet could watch her, but she showed no knowledge of his being part of her dream just yet. She sat on a small needlepoint bench in front of the dressing table. She began with her eyes, applying brightly shimmering faint purple eyeshadow to her upper eyelids, to her eyebrows. Then Ruth smudged dark eyeshadow in the crease of her upper lids for a deep set effect. Finally, she applied mascara only to her lower lashes. She plucked her eyebrows and then drew them again with an eyebrow pencil as thin lines that extended toward her temples. She moved her attention to her mouth. She created a rosebud mouth with full lips and an elongated bow that rounded and flared at the corners in vibrant raspberry red. She painted her nails to match. And as a final ornamentation, Ruth took the eyebrow pencil and drew a small round beauty mark on her upper lip on the right side of her mouth. She had a slightly crooked smile, and that little mark drew attention to the vibrancy of her delighted expression. Ruth looked herself over in the mirror and approved of what she saw. She stood up from the little table and walked over to a dresser. She opened the top drawer and pulled out a black garter belt. From the drawer next to the one she had first opened, she pulled out two sheer silk stockings. She walked back to the dressing table. Follet found himself staring at the beautiful young woman as naked as when she was born, her lips swaying gently as she walked, the muscles of her legs moving under her skin. She sat again and lifted her left leg, resting her heel on the edge of the bench. She carefully slid the silk stocking over her toes, checked that the seam was centered at her heel, and rolled the sheer silk over her ankle past her calf, up and over her knee past the middle of her thigh. She put her left foot back onto the floor and turned on the bench so that she faced Follet. She raised her right leg to rest on the edge of the bench and revealed the soft downy hair that framed her pussy. And then she pulled on her other stocking. She put her right foot back on the floor, stood and reached for the black garter belt. She fastened it at her waist and adjusted it, and then attached the clasps to the stockings. Ruth walked to a wardrobe and opened the doors to reveal 6 or 7 dresses on hangers. She chose a bias-cut raspberry dress that flared a little halfway between her knees and ankles, but hugged her hips and flattered her bosom, and hung it from a hook just inside the door of the wardrobe. She reached in and pulled out a pair of raspberry leather lace-up shoes with thick heels about 2 inches tall. Wearing only her stockings and garter belt, she picked up the shoes and walked over to the bench in front of the dressing table and placed the shoes on the floor next to the bench. She was facing away from Follet, and Follet had the exquisite pleasure of watching her slip her left foot into one of the shoes, lift her foot to place it on the bench, and then bend to tie the laces of the shoe, the beautiful soft roundness of her ass tantalizing and consuming his attention. She straightened, lifted her leg to place the shod foot back on the floor, and then slipped her other foot into the remaining shoe and repeated the procedure. Clad only in the bright, deeply rich framboise leather on her feet, skin-hugging silk stockings, and a black garter belt, Ruth straightened and placed her right foot on the floor, pivoted, and walked to a full-length mirror on the wall. She now faced Follet in the dream and twisted her torso to look behind her to check that the seams of her stockings were straight. She smiled at what she saw and let the fingers of her right hand trace the curve of her hip. And when she turned away from the mirror, Ruth let the fingers of her hand brush her left breast. Her breasts were small but full with large dark areolae that just begged to be kissed, or at least that's what the men she had been with had told her. Then float down her stomach to linger for half a heartbeat at the soft hair that proclaimed her pubis. She then walked to the wardrobe and took the dress from the hook. She slipped it over her head, raising her arms to allow the dress to slide down to cover her nakedness. She reached around and found the zipper and zipped it up the back. She walked to the mirror on the wall and examined herself in its reflection, making minute adjustments. She smiled her crooked smile when she saw the finished product. She hurried back to the dressing table, grabbed a black leather clutch purse from the table, and fairly danced out the door. The dream allowed Follet to see Ruth climb into a sherbet orange Ford cabriolet, top down, with a young woman wearing a sunny yellow dress and a lime green brimmed hat. The 2 women laughed and hugged, and the woman in yellow reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a small silver flask, unscrewed the cap, took a belt, and handed the flask to Ruth. Ruth took a drink, made a face, and told her friend, "Shake a leg, Toots," and off they roared. Ruth's dream took her to Three Forks. The Ford skidded to a stop in front of Shaple's General Store, and Follet was suddenly in the back room. He sat on a spindle-backed chair with the nail barrel within reach. A grateful patron of the juke had put a mason jar full of hooch on the barrel for Follet. Sonny Boy was standing next to Follet, and when Follet reached for the jar and knocked it out of his hand, Follet turned on Sonny Boy and warned him, "Don't never knock a bottle out my hand." Sonny Boy turned and left him there. Follet wore brown, high-waisted trousers with subtle thin stripes and strong pressed pleats down the legs and straight hems. He had hung his suit jacket on a hook on the wall and had hung his tan fedora on another hook next to it. He wore a vest over a tan and cream window pane print silk button-down dress shirt with French cuffs, a wide, straight, pointed collar, and light brown sailor knot tie. His shoes were brown and cream two-toned Oxfords, and his red and yellow silk Argyle socks peeked out if he crossed his legs. Follet stood and reached down behind the chair and opened his guitar case. Inside was a Kalamazoo model KG-14, a ladder-braced non-truss rod version of one of the Gibson L's double-aughts that he could never have afforded if he hadn't met that Mr. Law and traveled to Texas. The top was solid spruce, the back, sides, and neck solid mahogany. The board and bridge were rosewood. This one was sunburst in a small teardrop shape close to the sound hole. He had bought it after the recording session in San Antonio. Mr. Charlie had let him play an L1 for the sessions and hold on to it for the photographs afterward, but they took it back just as soon as they could. As soon as he got back to Helena, he had bought a Kalamazoo and given his old Stella to little Robert Lockwood. Shaple's General Store had begun as a one-room with a door on trestles for a counter. Mr. Shaples did such a good business that he was able to expand quickly. People from all around said, "If you can't buy it here, you don't need it." And if you needed something but had no money, Mr. Shaples extended credit or would trade. If you brought him a chicken to trade for a sack of cornmeal, Mr. Shaples would take your chicken, open the trap door behind the counter and drop the chicken into a coop under the floor and then hand you the sack of meal that you wanted. Mrs. Shaples would take a broom to the no-counts and four-flushers who hung around gossiping and pretending to look for work. Once a month, Dr. Jake would drive up in his heap and see to whatever was ailing anyone who stopped by. And when Dr. Jake was gone or his price too dear, root doctors would bring the herbs and roots they found and create goofer dust, potions, and spells that could treat ills, provide protection, injure enemies, or attract lovers. Ruth walked through the store on her way to the music and the bust-head liquor in the back room. She passed by some sacks of flour in orderly stacks, cartons of soap piled waist-high, lanterns, coal oil, cigarettes, cigars, needles, thread, bolts of fabric, shovels, pitchforks, axes, knives, dishes, pots, pans, canned goods, mason jars, sugar, salt, spices, and 100 other necessities and little luxuries that made life possible, bearable, and worth living. She could hear people talking and laughing, and then a guitar playing, and then a man singing. She walked through a doorway into the back room. A couple was dancing in the middle of the room. Two men were arguing by the back door. A woman stumbled by, spilling the clear liquid in a mason jar she held, and a brown-eyed, very handsome man was playing guitar. Follet looked up from his picking and saw Ruth enter the back room. She was just as heart-stoppingly beautiful in the raspberry dress as she had been naked. She caught Follet's eye. He smiled and looked down at his guitar, concentrating on finishing the song without muffing it. He thought, "I think these folks need a little hokum," and began Willie McTell's "Let Me Play With You Yo-Yo." Follet looked at Ruth as she began to dance to the nasty song. She was doing the Charleston. He guessed that she had learned it when she was in high school. "Now, baby, let me handle your yo-yo string. I'll let you play with mine. That's why I'm wild about a real yo-yo. You know I like to take my time. Twitch it like a tadpole, snatch it like a frog, every time I throw the string. You gotta holler, God dog, let me play with your yo-yo. I'll let you play with mine. I say I'm gonna let you play with mine." Now he was cooking with gas. Folks was laughing, folks was dancing, folks was getting frisky. Now what next? That rag by that blind Fuller boy, trucking my blues away. Ruth did a mean black bottom to the little tune. Follet watched her dance and thought, must be jelly, 'cause jam don't shake like that. Keep on trucking, mama, trucking my blues away. Keep on trucking, baby, trucking my both night and day. Little brown rooster told the little red hen, I ain't had no lovin' since I don't know when. Keep on trucking, mama, trucking my blues away. Ah, me, trucking my blues away, yeah. Yeah, another one of them fuller rags should get him ready for one of his. Ruth did the shag and closed her eyes, and when she heard the line, "Smell like puddin', it ain't no pie, really good to me, and it ain't no lie," Follet smiled at the thought of that puddin' and played the last verse. "What's that smell like fish, Mama? Food, if you really wants to know. What's that smell like fish, baby? Food, if you really want to know. Make you weep, it'll make you moan, some doggone thing make me leave my home. What that smell like fish, baby? Food, if you really want to know. I mean food, if you really want to know." Now for one of his. They're red hot. So was Ruth, doing the Big Apple and shaking her moneymaker. Hot tamales and they're red hot. Yeah, she got 'em for sale. Hot tamales and they're red hot. Yeah, she got 'em for sale. She got 2 for a nickel, 4 for a dime. Sell you more, but they ain't none of mine. Hot tamales, they're red hot. Yeah, she got 'em for sale. I mean, yes, she got 'em for sale. Yes, yeah. Hot tamales, they're red hot. Yeah, she got 'em for sale. Hot tamales and they're red hot. Yeah, she got 'em for sale. I got a letter from a girl in the room. Now she got something good she got to bring home soon. Now it's hot tamales and they're red hot. Yeah, she got 'em for sale. I mean, yeah, she got 'em for sale. When the song ended, everybody hooted and hollered and applauded. A man came up to Follet and said, "Robert, this lady would like to talk to you." And there was Ruth, close enough to touch.